Hello there, and welcome to our journey back in time. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight, or whenever you're listening, whether you're settling in for sleep, enjoying a quiet break in your day, or just curious about history. You're in for a truly immersive experience. Tonight, we're going to imagine what it might have been like to wake up in the heart of ancient Babylon, not in a storybook or a myth, but in the real quiet rhythms of daily life. Instead of listing facts, we'll move slowly through the mud brick alleys, courtyards, gardens, and temples of the city, observing the play of light, the scent of incense, the sound of sandals on clay, and the murmur of ancient voices. If you'd like, leave a comment saying where and when you're listening. Now get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin our journey. The first thing you notice is the quality of light seeping through the small window opening in the wall above you. It's not the harsh brightness of midday, but something softer, warmer, the gentle amber glow of early morning filtering through the dusty air. The walls around you are thick mud brick, their surfaces smooth from countless hands that have touched them over the years, and they seem to hold the coolness of night even as the day begins to warm. There's a faint scent in the air, not unpleasant, but earthy and ancient, the smell of clay and straw and something else, something that speaks of thousands of years of human habitation. You can hear the distant murmur of voices, muffled by the thick walls and the soft padding of bare feet on packed earth. Somewhere, a door creaks open and closes again, and there's the gentle splash of water being poured from one vessel to another. The sounds are unhurried, peaceful, part of the slow awakening of a city that has been here for centuries and will be here for centuries more. As you rise and move toward the window, your feet touch the cool clay floor, worn smooth by countless footsteps. The window is small, just large enough to frame a view of the courtyard below, where morning light pools in golden puddles between the shadows of overhanging roofs. The air that drifts through carries the scent of baking bread, mixed with the green smell of growing things and the dusty warmth of sun-heated brick. Below in the courtyard, you can see a woman drawing water from a well, her movements slow and practiced. She wears a simple robe that falls to her ankles, and her dark hair is bound back with a strip of woven cloth. The rope in her hands is thick and rough, and it makes a soft whispering sound as she pulls hand over hand, bringing the water vessel up from the depths. The well is old, its mouth worn smooth by the ropes that have passed over it for generations, and the water that emerges is clear and cool, reflecting the morning sky like a mirror. You notice how the light changes as you watch, growing warmer, more golden as the sun rises higher over the city. The shadows in the courtyard shift and shrink, and the woman at the well straightens, pressing one hand to the small of her back before lifting her water jar and disappearing through a doorway. The courtyard falls quiet again, except for the distant sound of a bird calling from somewhere among the rooftops. Moving away from the window, you find yourself drawn to explore this ancient space. The room you're in is simple but comfortable, with thick walls that keep the interior cool even as the day grows warmer. There's a low bench along one wall, carved from a single piece of wood that has been polished smooth by use, and a few clay vessels arranged on a shelf, simple, functional objects that speak of daily life lived without hurry or excess. A doorway leads out into a narrow corridor, and as you step through it, you feel the texture of the mud brick walls beneath your fingertips, slightly rough, with the occasional impression of a reed or piece of straw that was mixed into the clay when it was still wet. The corridor is dim and cool, lit only by the soft light that filters in from the courtyard at the far end. Your footsteps make almost no sound on the packed earth floor, and the air is still and peaceful. At the end of the corridor, you emerge into the courtyard you saw from the window. It's larger than it appeared from above, surrounded on all sides by low buildings with flat roofs and small windows. The well stands in the center, its mouth covered by a wooden lid to keep the water clean, and around it, the packed earth is worn smooth by countless feet, There are a few wooden stools scattered about, and in one corner, a large clay oven with a chimney that rises up through the roof of the building behind it. The scent of bread is stronger here, mixed with the smell of burning wood and the earthy aroma of the clay oven. Smoke rises lazily from the chimney, dispersing in the still air, and you can hear the soft crackle of flames within. Nearby, a cat emerges from the shadows, stretching luxuriously before settling down in a patch of sunlight, its fur catching the golden light as it begins to groom itself with slow, careful strokes. You take a seat on one of the wooden stools, feeling the smooth surface warm beneath you. The wood is old and weathered, worn to a pale golden color by sun and use, and it creaks slightly as you settle your weight upon it. From here you can see through an archway that leads out into the street beyond, where the morning light is growing brighter and the sounds of the waking city are becoming more distinct. A gentle breeze stirs the air, carrying with it the scent of something flowering, perhaps jasmine or another night-blooming plant that still holds its fragrance in the cool morning air. The breeze also brings the sound of distant voices, the soft lowing of cattle, and the rhythmic thump of someone beating grain somewhere in the neighborhood. These sounds blend together into a peaceful symphony of daily life, unhurried and constant as the rising sun. Through the archway, you can see a slice of the street, a narrow lane paved with flat stones, worn smooth by countless feet, and the occasional cartwheel. The buildings on either side rise 2 or 3 stories, their walls broken by small windows and doorways, and their roofs are flat and accessible by external stairs. Already you can see people moving about their morning tasks, a man carrying a large clay jar on his shoulder, a woman sweeping the area in front of her door, children playing a quiet game with small stones. The light continues to change as the sun climbs higher, shifting from the soft amber of early morning to the clearer, brighter gold of mid-morning. The shadows grow shorter and more defined, and the temperature begins to rise. Though the thick walls of the buildings keep the courtyards and rooms pleasantly cool, you can feel the warmth on your face and hands when you move into the direct sunlight. But the shade remains comfortable and inviting. A door opens across the courtyard, and an elderly man emerges, moving slowly and carefully. He wears a long robe of undyed wool, and his hair and beard are white as fresh cotton. In his hands he carries a small clay lamp, though it's not lit in the bright morning light. He walks to the well, sets down his lamp, and begins the process of drawing water, his movements deliberate and unhurried. The rope makes its soft whispering sound as he works, and the water, when it emerges, catches the light like liquid gold. You watch as he fills a large clay vessel, then a smaller one, and finally cups his hands to drink directly from the bucket. The water spills between his fingers, creating dark spots on the packed earth at his feet, and he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand before lifting his vessels and disappearing back through his doorway. The courtyard returns to its peaceful quiet, with only the cat for company, now sprawled fully in the sun and purring softly. The urge to explore grows stronger, and you rise from the stool, feeling the sun warm on your shoulders. As you cross the courtyard toward the archway, the transition from the enclosed space to the street is gradual. First, the deeper shadow of the archway, then the dappled light where buildings overhang the lane, and finally the full brightness of the open street. The stones beneath your feet are warm but not yet hot, and they're worn so smooth that they feel almost soft. The street is narrow enough that you could stretch your arms and nearly touch the buildings on both sides. The walls rise up around you, creating a sense of enclosure and intimacy, and the small windows and doorways are like friendly eyes watching your progress. The air smells of dust and sun-warmed stone, with occasional hints of cooking food, incense, and the green scent of plants growing in hidden courtyards. You walk slowly, taking in the details of this ancient neighborhood. The mud brick walls are painted white in places, though the paint has weathered and faded, creating a soft, mottled appearance that's pleasing to the eye. Here and there, you see small shrines set into niches in the walls, simple clay figures surrounded by offerings of bread, fruit, and flowers. The flowers are wilted from the heat, but they still give off a faint, sweet fragrance that mingles with the dusty air. As you continue down the street, you pass a workshop where a potter is at work. The door stands open, and you can see inside to where a man sits at a wheel, his hands covered in clay, shaping a vessel with practiced skill. The wheel turns slowly, driven by his foot, and the clay rises and falls under his hands like something alive. Nearby, shelves hold finished pieces, bowls, jars, and cups in various stages of drying, their surfaces smooth and beautiful in their simplicity. The potter glances up as you pass, nodding in a friendly greeting before returning to his work. His face is calm and focused, and there's clay under his fingernails and streaked across his forearms. The scent of wet clay fills the air around his workshop, earthy and clean, and you can hear the soft whisper of his hands against the spinning vessel. Further along the street, you come to a wider intersection where several lanes meet. Here, the buildings step back slightly, creating a small square where people can gather and rest. There's a stone bench worn smooth by countless sitters, and a small fountain where water trickles from the mouth of a carved fish into a shallow basin. The sound of the water is soothing, and the basin is surrounded by small pebbles and shells, worn smooth by the current. A few people are gathered here, speaking in low voices that blend with the sound of the fountain. They're dressed in simple robes and sandals, and their conversation seems unhurried and peaceful. Children play nearby, their laughter light and musical, and their game involves tossing small stones into patterns drawn in the dust. The stones make tiny clicking sounds as they land, and the children's voices rise and fall in gentle competition. The sun is climbing higher now, and the quality of light is changing, from the soft gold of morning to the clearer, more direct light of midday. The shadows are growing shorter, and the temperature is beginning to rise. Though the stone buildings provide plenty of shade, you can feel the warmth starting to build in the air, and the scent of dust and sun-heated stone is growing stronger. From the square, you can see the tops of larger buildings rising in the distance. The terraced levels of what might be a ziggurat, its stepped sides catching the light like a stairway to the sky. The sight draws you forward, and you take one of the broader streets that leads toward the city center. This avenue is paved with larger stones, and it's wide enough for carts and animals. Though at this hour, it's mostly empty, except for the occasional pedestrian moving about their daily business. The buildings along this street are larger and more elaborate than those in the residential quarter. Some are 2 or 3 stories tall, with windows that have actual shutters and doorways framed with carved stone. The walls are painted in soft colors, pale yellow, warm terracotta, and the occasional touch of blue, and the paint is fresher here, as if these buildings are more prosperous and better maintained. You pass a building with a large wooden door that stands partly open, revealing a glimpse of a courtyard beyond. The courtyard is paved with smooth stones, and there's a garden visible at the far end. Green plants and trees that look cool and inviting in the growing heat of the day. The scent of growing things drifts out through the doorway, mixed with the sound of water running in a small channel or stream. As you continue toward the city center, the streets become busier, though the pace remains unhurried. People move with purpose, but without haste, carrying baskets, leading animals, or simply walking in the company of friends. Their clothing is simple but well made, and their faces have the calm, patient expression of people who know that there's time for everything in its season. The sound of your own footsteps joins the gentle symphony of the street. The soft slap of sandals on stone, the rustle of robes, the low murmur of conversation, and the occasional creak of a cartwheel or the clip-clop of a donkey's hooves. These sounds blend together into something that's almost musical, a rhythm that speaks of life lived in harmony with the natural pace of the world. The avenue opens into a large square, and suddenly you're in the heart of the ancient city. The square is vast, paved with smooth stones, that have been worn to a beautiful patina by countless feet. At its center stands a fountain, not the simple trickling water of the neighborhood fountain, but a proper structure with carved sides and multiple levels where water flows from one basin to another. The sound of the water is louder here, almost musical, and the spray creates tiny rainbows in the bright sunlight. Around the edges of the square, buildings rise like cliffs, some of them 4 or 5 stories tall, their walls broken by balconies and terraces where people can sit and watch the life of the city unfold below. The architecture is impressive, but not overwhelming, built on a human scale that makes it feel welcoming rather than intimidating. Palm trees provide shade at intervals around the square, their fronds rustling softly in the breeze. But it's the ziggurat that dominates the view, a massive stepped pyramid rising from the far side of the square, its terraced levels climbing toward the sky like a mountain built by human hands. The structure is faced with baked brick, and each level is smaller than the one below, creating a sense of upward movement that draws the eye inexorably toward the temple at its summit. The bricks are a warm golden color, and they seem to glow in the sunlight, as if the entire structure were lit from within. You walk slowly across the square, your feet finding the rhythm of the worn stones beneath them. The fountain provides a focal point, and you find yourself drawn to it, the sound of the water growing louder as you approach. The basin is large enough that several people could sit around its edge, and the water is clear and cool, reflecting the blue sky and the white clouds that drift lazily overhead. Sitting on the edge of the fountain, you can feel the cool stone beneath you and the fine mist of spray on your face and hands. The water is constantly moving, flowing from the upper basins to the lower ones, and the sound it makes is soothing and hypnotic. Around you, the square continues its slow dance of daily life, people crossing from one side to the other, pausing to speak with friends, or simply sitting in the shade of the palm trees. The air is warmer now, heated by the sun and the stone, but the fountain provides a pocket of coolness, and the breeze that stirs the palm fronds brings occasional relief. You can smell the water, fresh and clean, mixed with the scent of the palm trees and the dust that rises from the stones. There's also the faint aroma of incense drifting from the direction of the ziggurat, sweet and exotic, adding an element of mystery to the peaceful scene. As you sit by the fountain, you notice how the light changes throughout the day. The sun has moved higher in the sky, and the shadows have shifted and shortened. The golden light of morning has given way to the clearer, more direct light of midday, and the temperature has risen correspondingly. But the thick walls of the buildings and the shade of the palm trees keep the square comfortable, and the fountain continues to provide its cooling presence. People come and go round the fountain, some pausing to drink or splash water on their faces, others simply using it as a meeting place or a rest stop in their journey across the square. You see merchants carrying bundles of goods, craftsmen with their tools, and families with children who play around the fountain's edge. Everyone moves with the same unhurried pace, as if time itself flows differently in this ancient place. The urge to explore the ziggurat grows stronger, and eventually you rise from the fountain's edge and begin to walk toward the massive structure. As you approach, its true size becomes apparent. It's not just tall but enormously wide, its base covering an area that would hold many city blocks. The lower levels are accessible by broad ramps that spiral around the structure, and you can see people moving slowly up and down these ramps, ant-like against the vastness of the building. The bricks of the ziggurat are indeed a warm golden color, and they're fitted together with such precision that the joints are barely visible. Each brick bears the marks of the hands that shaped it, and many are stamped with symbols or cuneiform characters that speak of the builders' names and the gods they served. The surface of the structure is not perfectly smooth. There are subtle variations in color and texture that give it a sense of life and movement. You begin to climb one of the ramps, your feet finding the worn grooves left by countless pilgrims and visitors over the centuries. The ramp is wide enough for several people to walk abreast, and it rises at a gentle angle that makes the climb comfortable rather than strenuous. The bricks beneath your feet are warm from the sun, and you can feel their heat through your sandals. As you climb, the view over the city begins to open up below you. First, you can see the square with its fountain and palm trees. Then the broader streets radiating out from the center, and finally the maze of smaller streets and courtyards that make up the residential quarters. The city spreads out like a map, its flat roofs and narrow streets creating a pattern of light and shadow that's beautiful in its complexity. The climb is peaceful and meditative, with plenty of time to observe the details of the ziggurat's construction and the changing view over the city. Other climbers pass you going up or down, some carrying offerings of flowers or food, others simply making the journey for the sake of the climb itself. Everyone moves at their own pace, and there's no sense of hurry or competition, just the shared experience of this ancient pilgrimage. Halfway up the ziggurat, you pause to rest in the shade of a small shrine built into a niche in the wall. The shrine contains a simple clay figure of a deity, surrounded by offerings of bread, fruit, and flowers. The flowers are beginning to wilt in the heat, but they still give off a sweet fragrance that mingles with the scent of incense burning in a small clay dish. The smoke from the incense rises straight up in the still air, dispersing only when it reaches the height of the next level. From this vantage point, you can see even more of the city, the harbor where boats bob at anchor, the fields beyond the city walls where crops grow in neat rows, and the river that winds through the landscape like a silver ribbon. The river is the lifeblood of the city, and you can see the irrigation channels that branch off from it, carrying water to the fields and gardens. The water catches the light, creating flashes of silver and gold that dance across the landscape. The midday sun is now high overhead, and the heat is beginning to build in earnest. But the thick walls of the ziggurat provide shade, and there's often a breeze at this height that provides relief from the temperature. You can feel the warmth radiating from the bricks, but it's not unpleasant, more like the warmth of a hearth than the harsh heat of the desert. Continuing your climb, you pass more shrines and small chambers built into the structure. Some of these are occupied by priests or attendants who nod in greeting as you pass. They wear simple robes and have the calm, patient expressions of people who have found their place in the world. The scent of incense is stronger here, mixed with the smell of oil from the lamps that burn in the darker recesses of the structure. As you near the top of the ziggurat, the view becomes truly spectacular. The city spreads out below you like a living map, and you can see the patterns of its growth and development. The older sections with their narrow, winding streets, and the newer areas with their broader avenues and more regular layouts. Beyond the city, the landscape stretches to the horizon, dotted with smaller settlements and crossed by the silver threads of irrigation channels. The temple at the summit of the ziggurat is surprisingly simple, a single rectangular building with thick walls and a flat roof. The entrance is framed by carved pillars, and the door stands open, revealing a glimpse of the interior. The walls are painted white, and the floor is paved with smooth stones that have been worn to a beautiful patina by countless feet. Inside, you can see the glow of oil lamps and the smoke of incense, and there's the sound of voices raised in quiet chant. You approach the temple respectfully, pausing at the threshold to observe the ceremony taking place within. The interior is cool and dim after the bright sunlight outside, and it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. The walls are decorated with simple geometric patterns, and there are niches containing various religious objects, bowls, cups, and figurines that catch the lamplight and seem to glow with their own inner fire. The priests move slowly and deliberately, their actions part of a ritual that has been performed for centuries. They wear white robes that fall to their ankles, and their voices rise and fall in the ancient chant, creating a sound that's both musical and hypnotic. The scent of incense is strong here, mixed with the smell of oil from the lamps and the faint aroma of offerings left by previous visitors. You remain at the threshold, not wanting to intrude on the sacred ceremony. but content to observe and absorb the atmosphere of this ancient place. The chanting continues, rising and falling like waves on a distant shore, and the smoke from the incense curls upward toward the ceiling, where it disperses in the still air. The priests move with the same unhurried pace that characterizes everything in this ancient city, their actions part of a rhythm that has been unbroken for countless generations. After a time, you step back from the temple and move to the edge of the ziggurat's summit. The view from here is breathtaking, the entire city spread out below you, the river winding through the landscape and the fields and gardens that stretch to the horizon. The sun is beginning its descent toward the west, and the quality of light is starting to change, becoming warmer and more golden as the day progresses toward evening. The breeze is stronger at this height, and it carries the scents of the city, cooking food, incense, and the green smell of growing things. You can hear the sounds of the city too, though they're muted by distance and height. The voices of people going about their daily business, the lowing of cattle, and the splash of water in the fountains and channels. These sounds blend together into a peaceful symphony that speaks of a city at peace with itself and its place in the world. You begin the descent slowly, taking your time to savor the changing perspectives and the gradual return to the life of the city. The ramp spirals around the ziggurat, and each turn brings a new view, sometimes over the city, sometimes over the surrounding countryside, and sometimes into the courtyards and gardens of the ziggurat complex itself. The bricks beneath your feet are still warm from the sun, and you can feel the heat radiating from the massive structure. As you descend, you pass other climbers making their way up or down the ramp. Some are pilgrims carrying offerings, others are tourists like yourself, and still others are priests or attendants going about their duties. Everyone moves at their own pace, and there's a sense of shared purpose and mutual respect that makes the journey pleasant and peaceful. Halfway down, you pause again at one of the shrines, this time to make a small offering of your own, a flower picked from a garden in the city below. The flower is simple but beautiful, and you place it carefully among the other offerings, adding your own small gesture to the centuries of devotion that have accumulated at this sacred place. The act feels natural and appropriate, a way of connecting with the long chain of human experience that stretches back through the ages. The descent continues, and gradually you return to the level of the city. The square opens up before you again, with its fountain and palm trees, and you can see people going about their afternoon activities. The sun is lower in the sky now, and the shadows are beginning to lengthen, creating new patterns of light and dark across the paved stones. You walk slowly across the square, your feet finding the familiar rhythm of the worn stones. The fountain continues its eternal music, and the sound of the water seems even more soothing after the climb up the ziggurat. You pause again at the fountain's edge, splashing cool water on your face and hands, feeling the refreshing coolness against your sun-warmed skin. The afternoon is progressing, and the quality of light is changing from the clear brightness of midday to the warmer, more golden tones of late afternoon. The shadows are growing longer, and the temperature is beginning to moderate as the sun moves lower in the sky. The scent of cooking food is becoming stronger, carried on the breeze from the residential quarters where people are preparing their evening meals. You leave the square and wander into a different part of the city, following one of the broader avenues that leads toward the river. This area is more commercial, with shops and workshops lining the street, and the buildings are slightly different in character, more utilitarian, but no less beautiful in their own way. The walls are painted in earth tones, and the doorways are wider to accommodate the flow of goods and customers. You pass a bakery where the scent of fresh bread fills the air, mixed with the aroma of honey and spices. The baker works at a large oven, his face flushed from the heat, and shelves of bread and pastries line the walls. The bread is golden brown and crusty, and you can hear the soft sound of the baker's hands working the dough for the next batch. Next to the bakery is a spice merchant shop, where the air is thick with the scent of cinnamon, cardamom, and other exotic spices. The spices are displayed in large clay jars, and the merchant measures them out with a brass scoop, weighing them on a balance scale. The colors are beautiful: deep red paprika, golden turmeric, and the pale green of dried herbs, and the scents are intoxicating, speaking of distant lands and trade routes that span the known world. The avenue continues toward the river, and as you walk, you can hear the sound of water growing louder. The buildings begin to change character again, becoming more warehouse-like, with large doors and loading docks where goods can be moved to and from the boats that ply the river. The scent of the river is stronger here, muddy and green, with the smell of fish and aquatic plants. Finally, you emerge onto the riverbank, where the great waterway spreads out before you like a highway of liquid silver. The river is wide and slow-moving, its surface disturbed only by the occasional boat or the wake of a swimming animal. The banks are lined with reeds and other aquatic plants, and you can see birds wading in the shallows, searching for fish and insects. Boats of various sizes are moored along the riverbank. Some are simple reed boats used for fishing and local transport, while others are larger vessels capable of carrying cargo up and down the river. The boats rock gently in the current, their ropes creaking softly where they're tied to wooden posts driven into the mud. The water laps against the hulls with a gentle, rhythmic sound that's almost hypnotic. You walk along the riverbank, enjoying the cooler air and the different perspective it provides on the city. From here you can see the backs of the buildings that line the main streets, their courtyards and gardens extending down to the water's edge. Some of these gardens are elaborate, with terraces and fountains, while others are simple plots where vegetables and herbs grow in neat rows. The sun is sinking lower in the sky, and the light is becoming warmer and more golden. The water of the river reflects the sky, creating a mirror image of the clouds and the setting sun. The colors are beautiful: deep blue water, golden light, and the green of the plants along the banks. The scene is peaceful and timeless, a reminder of the eternal cycle of day and night, season and season. You find a comfortable spot to sit on, a stone bench that overlooks the river, and you settle in to watch the changing light and the life of the waterway. Boats pass by occasionally, their occupants going about their business with the same unhurried pace that characterizes everything in this ancient city. Some are fishermen, returning from their day's work, their boats loaded with their catch, while others are merchants transporting goods to markets up or down the river. The air is filled with the sounds of the river, the gentle lapping of water against the boats, the calls of birds, and the soft rustle of reeds in the breeze. Occasionally you hear the voices of people working on the boats or in the gardens, but these sounds are muted and peaceful, part of the natural rhythm of life along the waterway. As the sun continues its descent, the quality of light becomes even more beautiful. The golden hour has arrived, and everything is bathed in warm, honey-colored light that transforms the ordinary into the magical. The water of the river glows like molten gold, and the buildings of the city seem to glow from within, their mud brick walls warm and welcoming in the soft light. The scent of evening meals being prepared drifts from the city, carried on the breeze that stirs the reeds and cools the air. You can smell bread baking, meat roasting, and the complex aromas of spices and herbs that speak of a cuisine developed over centuries of trade and cultural exchange. The scents make you aware of your own hunger, but there's no urgency about it, just the pleasant anticipation of a good meal at the end of a peaceful day. The river continues its eternal flow, carrying boats and debris, and the occasional bird that rides the current for a short distance before taking wing again. The water is dark now, reflecting the deepening sky, and the first stars are beginning to appear in the east. The transition from day to night is gradual and peaceful, marked by the changing light and the subtle shift in the sounds and scents of the city. You rise from the bench and begin to walk back toward the city center, following the riverbank for a while before turning inland. The streets are quieter now, but not empty. People are still going about their evening business, visiting with neighbors, or simply enjoying the cooler air of the approaching night. The buildings glow softly in the twilight, and oil lamps begin to appear in windows and doorways, creating pools of warm light in the gathering darkness. The avenue you follow leads past more shops and workshops, most of them closed for the day, but some still active. You pass a tavern where the sound of conversation and laughter spills out through the open door, mixed with the scent of wine and roasted meat. The atmosphere is convivial and welcoming, and you can see people gathered around low tables sharing food and drink and the companionship of their neighbors. As you continue toward the city center, you pass through a residential quarter where the day's activities are winding down. Children play in the courtyards, their voices bright and cheerful in the soft evening air. Women draw water from wells and carry it to their homes, while men tend to animals or work in small gardens. The pace is unhurried, and there's a sense of contentment and peace that pervades the entire neighborhood. The square comes into view again, though it looks different now in the twilight. The fountain continues its eternal music, but the sound seems softer and more soothing in the evening air. The palm trees rustle gently in the breeze, and oil lamps begin to flicker to life around the edges of the square. The ziggurat looms against the darkening sky, its massive bulk outlined against the stars. You cross the square slowly, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere and the gentle sounds of the evening. The fountain provides a focal point, and you pause there once more, listening to the water and watching the reflections of the early stars in its surface. The stone is still warm from the day's sun, but the air is cooler now, and the breeze carries the scent of jasmine and other night-blooming flowers. From the square, you can see lights beginning to appear in the windows of the buildings that surround it. The lights are soft and warm, created by oil lamps and candles, and they create a sense of home and hearth that's deeply comforting. The city is settling into its evening rhythm, and the sounds are changing. Less activity, more conversation, and the gentle sounds of people relaxing after the day's work. You decide to explore a different part of the city, following one of the narrower streets that lead away from the square. This area is more residential, with smaller buildings and more intimate courtyards. The street is paved with smooth stones, and oil lamps mounted on the walls provide enough light to see your way. The atmosphere is quiet and peaceful, broken only by the occasional sound of voices or the closing of a door. The buildings here are simple but well maintained, with thick walls and flat roofs that would provide cool sleeping spaces on hot nights. Many have small gardens or courtyards where the scent of flowers and herbs mingles with the cooking smells from the kitchens. You can hear the sounds of family life, children being called to supper, the clatter of dishes being prepared, and the low murmur of conversation between adults. As you walk, you pass a small shrine built into a niche in the wall, illuminated by a single oil lamp that flickers gently in the still air. The shrine contains a small clay figure of a household deity, surrounded by offerings of bread, fruit, and flowers. The lamp casts dancing shadows on the walls, and the scent of the oil mingles with the perfume of the flowers to create an atmosphere of quiet devotion. The street curves gently, following the natural contours of the land, and you find yourself in a small square surrounded by modest homes. This is clearly a neighborhood gathering place, with a simple well at its center and a few stone benches where people can sit and visit. The well is older than the one you saw earlier, its mouth worn smooth by countless ropes, and the stones around it are polished to a beautiful patina by the feet of generations of residents. A few people are still gathered here, talking quietly in the soft evening light. Their voices are low and peaceful, and their conversation seems to flow like the water in the fountain, without urgency or stress. Children play a quiet game nearby, their laughter gentle and musical, adding to the peaceful atmosphere of this intimate neighborhood space. The buildings around the square are similar to those you've seen elsewhere. Thick mud brick walls, flat roofs, and small windows that glow softly with interior light. But there's something particularly homely about this area, perhaps because it's clearly a place where people know each other well and have lived together for many years. The sense of community is palpable, and you feel welcomed even as a stranger. As the evening progresses, the lights in the windows grow brighter, and the sounds of evening meals being prepared become more distinct. You can hear the sizzle of food in clay pots, the rhythmic sound of grain being ground, and the gentle bubbling of stews and soups cooking over small fires. The scents are wonderful: cumin and coriander, roasted meat, and the warm smell of bread fresh from the oven. You continue your evening wandering, following another street that leads upward toward higher ground. The buildings here are slightly more substantial, suggesting a more prosperous neighborhood, but they maintain the same basic character: thick walls, flat roofs, and the intimate scale that makes the city feel welcoming rather than overwhelming. The street is wider here, and there are more oil lamps, creating pools of warm light that make navigation easy and pleasant. As you climb, you begin to get glimpses of the city spread out below you. The lights are more numerous now, creating a constellation of warm points scattered across the landscape. The river reflects some of these lights, and you can see the occasional boat moving on the water, its own lamp creating a moving point of light in the darkness. The ziggurat dominates the view, its bulk outlined against the star-filled sky. At the top of the rise, you find yourself on a terrace that overlooks the entire city. The view is spectacular, the lights of the city spread out below, the silver ribbon of the river winding through the landscape, and the vast canopy of stars overhead. The air is cooler here, and there's a gentle breeze that carries the sense of the city: cooking food, incense, and the green smell of gardens and growing things. There's a small garden on this terrace, with palm trees and flowering shrubs that perfume the night air. The plants are well tended, and you can see the gleam of water in small channels that irrigate them. The sound of the water is gentle and soothing, adding to the peaceful atmosphere of this elevated retreat. Stone benches are placed at intervals, providing places to sit and contemplate the view. You take a seat on one of the benches, feeling the smooth stone still warm from the day's sun. So warm from the day's sun, the city spreads out below you like a living tapestry, and you can see the patterns of light and shadow that mark the different neighborhoods. The sounds of the city drift up to you, muted by distance, but still distinct enough to remind you of the life that continues below. There's music coming from somewhere, the sound of a flute or similar instrument playing a gentle melody that seems to float on the night air. The stars are brilliant in the clear sky, undimmed by any artificial light. You can see the familiar constellations that have guided travelers and marked the seasons for countless generations. The moon is rising, casting silver light over the city and the river, and creating new patterns of light and shadow that transform the familiar landscape into something magical and mysterious. As you sit in this peaceful place, you become aware of the deep rhythms of the city, the cycles of day and night, work and rest, that have continued unbroken for centuries. There's something deeply comforting about this continuity, this sense of being part of a human story that extends far back into the past and will continue far into the future. The city breathes around you, its life force steady and strong, rooted in the earth, but reaching toward the stars. The night air is pleasant, neither too warm nor too cool, and the breeze carries the scents of the garden and the city below. You can smell jasmine and other night-blooming flowers, mixed with the lingering aromas of evening meals and the smoke from countless small fires. The scent of the river is there too, muddy and green, reminding you of the source of all life in this ancient land. After a time, you rise from the bench and begin to make your way back down into the city. The streets are quieter now, but not empty. People are still moving about, visiting with neighbors, or simply enjoying the cooler air of the night. The oil lamps create pools of warm light, and the sounds of the city have settled into the peaceful rhythm of evening. Conversation, laughter, and the gentle sounds of people relaxing after the day's work. You follow a different route back toward the city center, exploring new streets and neighborhoods. Each area has its own character, but all share the same basic qualities: the thick mud brick walls, the intimate scale, and the sense of community that makes the city feel like a collection of villages, rather than a single large settlement. The oil lamps and the lights in the windows create a warm, welcoming atmosphere that makes you feel at home, despite being a stranger. In one street, you pass a small workshop where a metal worker is still at his forge, shaping a piece of copper by the light of his fire. The glow of the forge creates a warm red light that spills out into the street, and you can hear the rhythmic sound of his hammer on the anvil. The work is skilled and careful, and the craftsman's face is calm and focused in the firelight. The scent of hot metal and charcoal mingles with the other aromas of the night. Further along, you come to a small courtyard where a group of musicians is playing for a small audience. The music is gentle and melodic, played on simple instruments, a flute, a small drum, and a stringed instrument that creates a soft, haunting melody. The musicians play with the same unhurried pace that characterizes everything in this ancient city, and their audience listens with quiet attention, some swaying gently to the rhythm. The courtyard is lit by oil lamps and torches, creating a warm, intimate atmosphere. The listeners sit on mats and cushions, some sharing food and drink, others simply enjoying the music and the company of their neighbors. The scene is peaceful and timeless, a reminder of the simple pleasures that have sustained human communities throughout history. You linger at the edge of the courtyard, listening to the music and absorbing the atmosphere. The melody is beautiful and haunting, with a quality that seems to speak of the deep history of this place and its people. The musicians play with skill and passion, but without any sense of performance or display. This is music made for the pure joy of making music, shared with friends and neighbors in the spirit of community. As the evening progresses, the music continues, sometimes fast and lively, sometimes slow and contemplative. The audience responds with quiet appreciation, sometimes clapping gently, sometimes singing along with familiar songs. The atmosphere is relaxed and friendly, and you feel welcomed, even as an outsider, included in the warm circle of community that extends beyond the immediate participants, to embrace anyone who wishes to share in the experience. Eventually, you continue your wandering, following the gentle pull of curiosity that draws you deeper into the maze of streets and courtyards. The city seems to unfold endlessly, each street leading to new discoveries, each neighborhood revealing its own character and charm. The oil lamps continue to provide light, and the sounds of the city continue their gentle rhythm, conversation, laughter, and the soft sounds of people going about their evening activities. You find yourself in a market area. Though the shops are closed for the night, the stalls are covered with canvas or reed mats, and the goods are stored away until the morning. But the area still retains the character of a place where people come to buy and sell, to meet and exchange news, to participate in the daily life of the community. The stones are worn smooth by countless feet, and the air still carries the lingering sense of spices, leather, and other goods that were on display during the day. The market opens onto a small square, where a fountain plays in the center. The sound of the water is musical and soothing, and the basin is surrounded by benches where people can sit and rest. A few people are still gathered here, talking quietly or simply enjoying the pleasant evening air. The fountain is lit by several oil lamps, and the water catches the light, creating dancing reflections that add to the peaceful atmosphere. You sit on one of the benches, listening to the fountain and watching the play of light on the water. The stone is cool now, having lost the heat of the day, and the air is fresh and pleasant. The sounds of the city continue around you, distant conversation, the occasional bark of a dog, and the gentle rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. These sounds blend into a peaceful symphony that speaks of a city at rest, settling into the quiet rhythms of the night. The moon is higher now, casting silver light over the square and the fountain. The light is soft and gentle, creating new patterns of shadow and illumination that transform the familiar into something magical. The water of the fountain seems to glow with its own inner light, and the stones of the square are bathed in the soft radiance of the moon. The palm trees cast intricate shadows, and the buildings around the square seem to glow softly in the moonlight. As you sit in this peaceful place, you become aware of the deep quiet that has settled over the city. It's not the silence of abandonment, but the gentle quiet of a community at rest. People sleeping in their beds, children dreaming in their mother's arms, elders reflecting on the day's events. The city breathes around you, its life force steady and strong, rooted in centuries of human habitation and the daily cycles of life and death, work and rest. The night air is filled with the scent of jasmine and other night-blooming flowers, mixed with the lingering aromas of the day's activities. You can smell the smoke from dying fires, the scent of oil from the lamps, and the green smell of plants and gardens. The river is there too, its muddy, life-giving presence, a constant reminder of the source of all prosperity in this ancient land. After a time, you rise from the bench and begin to make your way back toward the residential quarter, where your journey began. The streets are even quieter now, with only the occasional person still moving about. The oil lamps provide enough light to see your way, and their warm glow creates a sense of safety and welcome that makes the nighttime journey pleasant rather than daunting. You pass through neighborhoods you've seen before, but they look different in the moonlight. The familiar buildings seem transformed, their mud brick walls glowing softly in the silver light, their windows warm with the glow of oil lamps and the life that continues within. The scent of night-blooming flowers is stronger now, and you can hear the gentle sounds of people settling in for the night. Quiet conversations, the soft closing of doors, and the rustling of bedding being arranged. The narrow streets wind through the residential areas, following the natural contours of the land and the organic patterns of human settlement. Each street has its own character, its own collection of homes and courtyards, its own small shrines and gathering places. The oil lamps create pools of warm light, and the moon provides a gentle silver illumination that makes the journey peaceful and contemplative. You find yourself drawn to a small garden that you glimpsed earlier in the day. The garden is accessible through an open gate, and you can see that it's designed for quiet contemplation rather than practical use. There are palm trees and flowering shrubs arranged around a small pool where water reflects the moon and stars. The scent of jasmine is particularly strong here, and you can hear the gentle sound of water trickling from a small fountain. The garden is empty of people, but it doesn't feel lonely. Rather, it feels like a place set aside for quiet reflection and communion with the natural world. The plants are well tended, and the paths are swept clean, suggesting that this is a place that's loved and cared for by the community. You walk slowly along the paths, enjoying the scent of the flowers and the sound of the water, feeling the peace that comes from being in a place where nature and human design work together in harmony. There's a small stone bench beside the pool, and you sit there for a while, watching the reflections of the moon and stars in the water. The surface is occasionally disturbed by a falling leaf or a small insect, creating ripples that distort the reflections before they settle back into clarity. The sound of the water is hypnotic, and the scent of the flowers is intoxicating, not overwhelming, but gentle and soothing, like the breath of the sleeping city itself. As you sit in this peaceful place, you feel the deep contentment that comes from being in harmony with the natural rhythms of the world. But the city sleeps around you, its life force steady and strong, rooted in the earth, but reaching toward the stars. The night air is sweet with the scent of flowers, and the gentle sounds of the city at rest create a lullaby that speaks of peace and safety and the eternal cycle of day and night. The moon continues its journey across the sky, casting ever-changing patterns of light and shadow in the garden. The pool reflects the sky like a mirror, and the palm trees rustle gently in the breeze. The scent of jasmine grows stronger as the night progresses, and you can hear the distant sound of someone playing a flute, the melody soft and haunting in the quiet air. Eventually, you rise from the bench and make your way back to the courtyard where your journey began. The streets are very quiet now, with only the oil lamps providing light and the occasional sound of someone moving about their nighttime activities. The city has settled into its deepest rest, and the sounds are few and far between. The closing of a door, the soft footsteps of someone walking home, the distant call of a night bird. The courtyard is empty when you arrive, lit only by the moon and a single oil lamp burning in a niche in the wall. The well stands in the center, its mouth covered for the night, and the stone benches are empty but welcoming. The buildings around the courtyard are dark, except for the occasional window where a lamp still burns, suggesting someone awake and perhaps reading or working on some quiet task. You cross the courtyard slowly, your footsteps soft on the packed earth. The air is cool and pleasant, filled with the scent of night-blooming flowers and the lingering aromas of the day's activities. The sounds of the city have faded to almost nothing, just the gentle rustle of palm fronds in the breeze and the distant sound of water flowing in the irrigation channels. The corridor that leads to your room is even quieter, a tunnel of cool air and deep shadow. The mud brick walls seem to absorb sound, creating an atmosphere of profound peace and restfulness. Your footsteps make almost no sound on the packed earth floor, and the air is still and cool, a welcome relief from the warmth of the day. Finally, you reach the room where your journey began, and you stand for a moment in the doorway, looking out at the small window that frames a view of the night sky. The stars are brilliant in the clear air, undimmed by any artificial light, and the moon casts a gentle silver glow over the courtyard below. The air that drifts through the window is cool and sweet, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of water. You move to the window and look out over the sleeping city. The lights are fewer now, just the occasional oil lamp in a window or the glow of a dying fire. The city breathes around you, its life force steady and strong, rooted in the deep rhythms of human habitation and the eternal cycles of day and night, season and season. The sounds are few and far between. The distant call of a night bird, the soft rustle of palm fronds, and the gentle murmur of water in the channels and fountains. The moon is setting now, moving toward the western horizon, and the first faint hints of dawn are beginning to appear in the east. The sky is still dark, but there's a subtle change in the quality of the darkness, a softening that suggests the approach of morning. The air is at its coolest now, and the scent of night-blooming flowers is beginning to fade as the plants prepare for the heat of the coming day. You settle onto the low bench beside the window, feeling the smooth wood beneath you and the cool air on your face. The city is at its most peaceful now, in the deep hours before dawn, when even the most restless souls find rest. The sounds are minimal, just the gentle background murmur of a living city, the soft breathing of a community at peace with itself and its place in the world. The stars continue their eternal dance across the sky, and the moon sinks slowly toward the horizon. The first birds begin to stir, their soft calls a gentle herald of the coming day. The air starts to move slightly, the beginning of the daily cycle of heating and cooling that will bring the morning breeze. The scent of the night flowers grows fainter, and you can detect the first hint of the morning's bread baking in distant ovens. As you sit in this peaceful place, watching the slow transition from night to day, you feel the deep satisfaction that comes from having experienced something timeless and eternal. The city has revealed its rhythms to you, the slow, steady pulse of life that has continued unchanged for centuries and will continue for centuries more. The night has been a journey through time as much as through space, a glimpse into the enduring patterns of human life and community. The darkness begins to soften, almost imperceptibly, and the first tentative songs of dawn. Birds join the gentle symphony of the awakening city. The air stirs with the promise of morning, and the scent of baking bread grows stronger. The oil lamps in the windows begin to seem less necessary as the natural light slowly increases, and the stars fade one by one into the brightening sky. The moon has set, and the sun has not yet risen, but the sky is beginning to show the first faint colors of dawn. Deep purple, giving way to violet, then to the pale rose that heralds the coming day. The air is sweet and cool, filled with the promise of another day in this ancient city, another cycle in the eternal rhythm of human life and community. You remain at the window, watching the sky lighten and listening to the gentle sounds of the city awakening. The transformation is gradual and peaceful, a slow transition from the quiet of night to the gentle activity of early morning. The birds sing more confidently now, and you can hear the distant sound of someone drawing water from a well, the rope whispering softly as it moves through the worn groove in the stone. The light continues to grow, soft and golden, filtering through the dust motes in the air and casting gentle shadows across the courtyard below. The buildings begin to emerge from the darkness, their mud brick walls warm and welcoming in the growing light. The scent of morning bread is stronger now, and you can hear the soft sounds of the city coming to life. Doors opening, footsteps on stone, and the gentle murmur of voices as people begin their daily routines. As the light grows stronger, you feel the peaceful satisfaction of having completed your journey through the night. The city has shown you its deepest rhythms, its most intimate moments, and you have been privileged to witness the eternal dance of human life and community. The dawn brings the promise of a new day, but also the continuation of patterns that have endured for countless generations and will endure for countless more. The first ray of sunlight touches the courtyard below, and you know that the night's journey is complete. The city breathes around you, steady and strong, rooted in the earth but reaching toward the sky, a testament to the enduring power of human community and the eternal cycles of day and night, work and rest, that have sustained civilization since the beginning of time. The ancient rhythms continue, and you have been part of them, if only for a night, in the heart of eternal Babylon.